California Governor Gavin Newsom has a battle on his hands that covers two fronts. First, he has to manage the response to the catastrophic Los Angeles fires, and second, he has to counter the firestorm of misinformation coming from Donald Trump. And I have the latest on this breaking story for you next. The governor has been working overtime to coordinate resources and rally support for Californians devastated by the disaster, a disaster that could become the nation's worst, so you might expect the incoming president to offer solidarity, pledge federal assistance, and bring reassurance to the country in a time of need, right? Of course not. We're talking about Donald Trump, and he's been busy fanning the flames of division, politicizing the disaster, and attacking Newsom with a barrage of falsehoods. Rather than unite and rally the nation in a moment of need, he's creating the chaos that he thrives on with his appalling rhetoric. So now Newsom faces the additional burden of refuting Trump's lies, a daily distraction that pulls him away from addressing the real crisis. Time that should be spent informing the public is instead consumed by correcting Trump's baseless claims. Here's a clip of Trump's latest effort to attack instead of support, and on the other side, I'll have the rebuttal from a frustrated Newsom.
California, what specifically do you think Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass could have done differently to prepare for this $50 billion fire?
You know, Gavin Newsom had an opportunity to have millions of gallons a week, a day, millions and millions of gallons come down from the north. And I was able to get him federal approval from that, from the Department of Commerce of all departments. I didn't realize it would go through Commerce. I would have thought environmental, but it goes through Commerce. I got all of the approvals, and he said, I don't want to sign it. I don't want the water. We don't need the water. I said, you need the water. Your reservoirs are empty, the whole place. You need the water. That was 5 years ago. And I had it all done. The work was all done. We sent it to him. He refused to sign it. And if you notice yesterday, the hydrants were empty. They didn't have any water, many of them. They said 20%, but now I just heard 50%, and now none of them have water, and that fire's still raging. He turned that down. I was going to give him unlimited water. It would come down, it really comes down from the north, way up north, including parts of Canada. It's so much water that they wouldn't know what to do with. Just the opposite would have happened. And that's the reason that this happened. He wouldn't do what we wanted, and we're going to force that upon him now, but it's very late, because I think it's one of the great catastrophes in the history of our nation. This is not just in Los Angeles. I've never seen anything like that, devastation. And we're talking about homes that cost $200, $300, $400 million. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. People that, and very influential people worldwide. I don't know that they ever go back either, because you know, they weren't happy with California. They weren't happy with Gavin Newsom. They weren't happy with their whole lifestyle there, with the crime being out of control, all the other problems. They were not happy. I think that Gavin is largely incompetent, and I think the mayor is largely incompetent, and probably both of them are just stone cold incompetent. What they've done is terrible.
He called you incompetent. What's your response?
Well, I called for him to come out, take a look for himself. We want to do it in the spirit of an open hand, not a closed fist. He's the president-elect. I respect the office. We have a president of the United States that within 36 hours provided a major disaster declaration over a text. We had support from the president of the United States, Joe Biden, with 100% reimbursement, all the resources you could hope for or imagine, constant communication. I'd like to extend that to the president-elect. I don't know what he's referring to when he talks about the Delta smelt in reservoirs. The reservoirs are completely full, the state reservoirs here in Southern California. That mis and disinformation, I don't think advantages or aids any of us. Responding to Donald Trump's insults, we would spend another month. I'm very familiar with them. Every elected official that he disagrees with, very familiar with them.
We do know, though, from reporting here locally that that one reservoir that serves the Palisades was not full.
And that's exactly what triggered my desire to get the investigation, to understand what was happening with that local reservoir. That was not a state system reservoir, which the president-elect was referring to as it relates to the Delta and somehow connecting the Delta smelt to this fire, which is inexcusable because it's inaccurate, also incomprehensible to anyone that understands water policy in the state.
My understanding is that you have put a call into President-elect Trump. Has he called you back?
No, that was months ago. That was after his victory. So I look forward to him, again, coming out here in the spirit of cooperation.
Forgive me for interrupting you, but you did invite him to come out here. Have you had any response?
No.
Nothing. Multiple times, Mr. Trump has threatened to withhold aid for California wildfires, both as president and now again as president-elect. Are you worried that he might actually do that?
Well, I mean, he's done it to Utah, he's done it to Michigan, did it to Puerto Rico. He did it to California back before I was even governor in 2018, until he found out folks in Orange County voted for him, and then he decided to give the money. So he's been at this for years and years and years. It transcends states, including, by the way, Georgia. He threatened similarly. So that's his style. And you know, we take it seriously to the extent that in the past it's taken a little bit more time. I've been pretty expressive about that in the context of someone threatening our first responders in terms of supporting the immediacy of their needs.
So that's what you take it as, that President-elect Trump is threatening the first responders here.
Well, I mean, it's what he said. He said, I'm not going to support the firefighting efforts. I'm not going to support the state of California as it relates to its emergency management. He made this pretty clear during the election, unless they do my bidding. And again, these are familiar terms, and they're familiar to a lot of other states, not just my state, and they're familiar to not just me as governor, but the previous governor of California, Governor Brown, that was battling with these same things. So you just work through these things, and I'm just blessed. I mean this. I'm blessed. I have 40 million Americans that happen to live in California, that Joe Biden's president of the United States and did what he did immediately. And to the extent that we can work with the same relationship and that same spirit with Donald Trump, I hope we can.
Because Donald Trump is a volume liar, I couldn't share all of them with you in this video, but if you want the complete breakdown, check out Daniel Dale's article on CNN entitled Fact Check. As wildfires rage, Trump lashes out with false claims about FEMA and California water policy. Trump's response to the Los Angeles fires serves as a glaring example of his troubling need to stir division instead of provide leadership. As Californians grapple with this calamity and have basic needs that require attention, the nation should expect the incoming president to offer support instead of weaponizing the tragedy and continuing a petty vendetta against a perceived adversary just to make it about himself. Trump has previously threatened to withhold federal wildfire assistance in attacks against Newsom, and his continued antagonism towards a state that did not vote for him is very alarming. Disasters do not discriminate based on politics, and neither should the federal response in the months to come.
During the trip in final days of presidency, the matter the wildlife. Trump attack on Biden and Newsom are his latest attempt to portray the outgoing administration as incompetent, apparently designed to flatter his own incoming White House team by comparison. His comment suggests that his second amortization, which begins in 11 days, will be just an underthought and turbulent in his first, and will be punctuated the angry outburst on social media against the opponent even during crisis. Trump and Newsom have a deeply antagonistic relationship with the uncelebrated by their sharp different ideology and fact. The mighty California has the power to frustrate some of President-elect political priorities. Trump is also